what's up, guys? We're back, and this week we're going to be doing another UFC fight night. It's going to be Paulo Costa taking on Marvin Vettori. Pretty interesting main event, especially with the stuff that's been going on this week. You know, I think the fight officially has been changed to a 195-pound fight. So a lot of weird stuff going on with Paulo Costa recently, especially, and it's always going to be something when he has a fight week. But the rest of the card, I mean, kind of a weak card. There's some good fights mixed in there, but man, I mean, we've been having to get through the mud with these UFC cards recently for next week and the week after that. There's some good cards coming up moving forward, but this card's pretty weak besides the main event once again. Even though we've been doing fairly well picks-wise, making money, it's just the cards haven't had a lot of great fights overall. But like always, before we get the video started, I just want to give a big shout out to everyone watching the video. Really appreciate all the support. If you want to jump on the Patreon and support that way, get some extra content as well, try to make some money, that's always appreciated as well. We've gone 8 for 8 so far in the Dana White Contender Series, trying to make that 10 for 10 sweep. Hopefully we can get there. You know, we made a decent amount of profit yesterday, almost hit on a pretty big underdog as well. So been doing well on that, been doing pretty well on bets overall. So if you want to jump on the Patreon this week, get some content potentially for LFA, for Bellator. If I could find some bets for that, I'm definitely going to be doing some Bellator content. So if you want to go over there and check that out, it's really appreciated. And try to hit the like button, subscribe. If you're new here, I do weekly predictions for the UFC. And just before we get the video started, I want to give a shout out to my sponsor, EquitySportsAnalytics.com. They're a great capping service. They do bets for MMA and all sports, and recently they've been doing very well with MMA, as you can see there with their current profit at plus 64 units, their best bet profit at plus 73 units between March 1st and October 19th. They have a lot of cool offers for you as well in terms of $5.99 a month packages, which is very affordable. Obviously, they have free trials going on. They have a dividend program, so they have a lot of things that, you know, if they're not doing as well as they usually do, they're held accountable, and they do help out you guys on the back end and things like that. So very good with their predictions, and then if they're not doing well, they do well by their customers as well. And very analytics driven, obviously, and friends don't let friends gamble without math. They're some of the best in the business, so definitely check out EquitySportsAnalytics.com. And we're going to get the video started here with the first fight night. This is actually the second fight of the night, but I'm going to come back and try to do a video for the fight with Jonathan Martinez. I'm not too familiar with his opponent, didn't have a lot of time to look into him, so going to probably do another video here tomorrow or Friday and put out that matchup. But the first fight we're going to talk about here is Livinha Souza taking on Randa Marcos. A fight between two girls that are pretty talented, but both of them recently just, haven't put it together in the UFC. Livinha Souza, she was the former Invicta champion. She actually has some pretty good wins in Invicta, where she beat Deanna Bennett by knockout, who's a girl that's a decent 125er, significantly bigger than Livinha. She beat Ayaka Hamasaki, who's a very, very good atom weight, a little bit smaller girl, and that win is even kind of disputed a little bit by certain people. But when you look at Souza, she is an aggressive grappler. Her last fight, she did get knocked out against Amanda Lemos, so you have to wonder if she's still going to have that same kind of confidence and, come forward ability. But the thing is with Randa Marcos, I don't think she's going to have to worry about getting knocked out. Marcos has never really shown to have significant power. But Souza on the feet, she does throw bombs. I mean, she throws big overhands, she throws big body kicks, but she tends to kind of lose steam on her shots after the first round, and she gets very sloppy on the feet. Her striking is not really the greatest, even though she can be a little bit dangerous early on because she does, throw hard. She really is a grappler, and she has pretty tricky takedowns. I mean, she has a good double leg. She has that judo black belt, so she has good takedowns in the clinch. And when she gets on top, she's very aggressive with her submission game. She's finished several of her fights via submission, and she also has some ground and pound finishes. At times she can, be over-aggressive and end up on bottom, and she has a tendency to just kind of stick around in her full guard. And she has a decent guard where she, can finish the fight with an armbar or a triangle, but a lot of the time, she can lose the round by just being on bottom. So with Marcos, I feel like she has to be a little bit smarter with her positioning on top, try to smother a little bit more, control the position, and then look for the submission, be a little bit more methodical, and, grind Marcos out a little bit more, because if she ends up on bottom and is kind of fishing for submissions off of her back, Marcos could kind of rack that round by having top control. So that's something that I think that Souza really has to kind of sure up in this one, is just when she gets the takedown, stay on top and try to grind out the round. If the submission is there, go for it, but don't be as wild and frantic as you are in most of your fights. And for Randa Marcos, I mean, she definitely has her back against the wall here. 4 consecutive losses. She actually, really, I mean, when you think about it, has fought everyone in the division almost, and she has 17 fights in the UFC. This is going to be her 17th fights, actually, so 16 fights. She has the second most fights of any woman in UFC history, so she's been around, man. Even though she's 6-10 in those fights, she's been able to keep a job for a long time. And Marcos has sprung some pretty big upsets. She's gotten some good wins, and she's more of a grappler. In this fight, I would say maybe she even has a slight striking advantage. I mean, it's kind of hard to say. She, comes forward. She's pretty aggressive. She'll throw some, 1-2s, and I feel like she maybe has a little bit sharper hands, but she doesn't have the same power, and sometimes she doesn't let go as much as Lavinia's willing to let go. So on the feet, it's a little bit of a wash. With Marcos, most of the fights that she's been able to win have been against girls where she could take them down and grind them out from the top position. Recently, they've been giving Marcos a lot of really tough grapplers, and this fight's kind of a similar situation. Maybe not as good of a grappler as the ones that she's been fighting recently, but Marcos has been failing to pass those tests. Where she fought Kanaka Murata, she got taken down, I believe, 9 times in that fight, or 5 times. She fought the judo girl in her last fight, and she was getting thrown all over the place, Luana Pinheiro, and eventually she did seem like she was kind of, turning the tide a little bit, but she was still clearly losing the fight, and then the up kick happened. She got disqualified. Even her matchup with Ashley Yoder, she was getting taken down a lot in that fight. So she definitely has shown, she can get taken down, and she's shown she can get submitted. She's gotten submitted a couple times in her career as well. So Marcos, usually she does better with girls that she could take down and control on top. This fight, I feel like she's going to come hard. She's going to try to pressure on the feet, try to get on the inside, where she's probably a little bit better than Souza and beat her with that boxing. But Souza's going to be going for the takedowns. It's just going to be whether Souza can get the takedowns easy enough to where she can control on top, doesn't let Marcos scramble to top position, or if, Marcos can either stuff the takedowns, get Souza a little bit tired, maybe get her to start pulling guard or just start pressuring and being a little bit more effective with the striking, or getting taken down, being able to scramble to the top position and control on top. So, I feel like this fight is lined pretty close, and probably going to be a split decision type of fight. So I'm going to go with the younger girl that I think can kind of control where the fight's going to be, has probably the better grappling skill, and Lavinia Souza, I think she's a little bit more explosive and powerful on the feet as well. A little bit. I don't know who's the better athlete. I mean, I feel like neither of them are super athletes, but I'm just going to go with Souza, man, even though I feel like this fight could really go either way. It's a tough one to call here. And in the next fight here, we got Jeff Molina taking on Daniel Lacerda. And this is an interesting one. 2 prospects here. We got Jeff Molina, who won his UFC debut, and that was a banger of a fight, man. He went in there against what was that guy's name? It was the Chinese fighter, and he was able to kind of grit out a tough fight where he looked like he lost the first round, he lost the majority of the second round, dropped his opponent at the bell of the second round, and then was able to dominate the third and get that decision win. So, he showed he can battle through some adversity there and, come out on top. So that was good. And this fight is a good test for him as well, because Daniel Lacerda is no joke, man. He's 25 years old. He is going to be making his debut in the UFC and in the United States, I believe. But he comes out of a good gym, the ATS gym, which has produced guys like Cowboy Oliveira. And he's an aggressive fighter, man. And he goes for the finish. All 11 of his wins are finishes. He has 12 fights on Sherdog, and he's finished all of those. So I'm not sure which one is correct, but his only loss was a shoulder injury loss very early in a fight. So he's technically unbeaten if you look at it that way. But still not very experienced overall. This is going to be his first fight in the United States as well. He's only gotten out of the first round one time in his career. And he's not fought the best competition. So he's a lot to prove here, but he looks good and dangerous. He has a bladed stance. He's fast, athletic. He's in and out. Throws some really nice kicks. He closes the distance with some nice punches. And, I saw him get a nice head kick knockout against Matteo Silva. A lot of his finishes are on the mat, though, on the feet. I haven't really seen him strike for extended periods of time. He does a good job of, going in and out, kind of faking the level change, and then eventually going for the takedown and getting it. And usually he gets the takedowns fairly easily. On the feet, I would try to jam the kicks of Lacerda, test how he does on the back foot and in the boxing range. And, his one loss is technically by TKO, but obviously it was that injury. And he has 5 TKO victories in his career. And he's a brown belt, and he has some decent wrestling skill, actually, and he is aggressive with the submission game. So he sets his takedowns up with strikes pretty well. His single leg, his double legs are pretty explosive. On top, he's an aggressive guy. And he usually does tend up to kind of lose position a lot. But he is very good on bottom, gets a lot of submissions from his guard. He'll throw really good elbows and kind of opens up the, ability for him to catch the neck or get that arm bar. And, he's good at catching submissions and scrambles as well. So opportunistic submission guy, 6 submission wins in his career. And the thing about it, though, is once you get up in these higher levels, it's going to be harder and harder to catch submissions off your back. So having multiple wins like that against low-level competition, to me, sometimes doesn't translate to the UFC. But Lacerda, another thing about him is his cardio hasn't really been tested. So this is going to be by far the best opponent he's faced, in my opinion. And, him on the big stage. So, like I said at the beginning, he has a lot to prove here. But overall, he does look like a fairly athletic, well-rounded guy that has some skill, and he's dangerous. So, if he can run through Jeff Molina how he has his lower-level opponents, he's probably going to skyrocket up the rankings. But Jeff Molina, man, his last fight he showed, it's going to be hard for anyone to run through him. He's very durable. He has really good boxing. He's very composed, calm in the cage, and has a lot of experience. He's fought at a higher level than Jeff Molina or than Lacerda, even though they have a similar level or a similar amount of fights. And I feel like, he has a good ability to mix it up, Molina, even though I feel like his wrestling is a little bit not that great. I feel like Lacerda is the better wrestler. I've seen Molina get taken down, controlled against the cage a little bit. I think he lacks a little bit of physicality sometimes, and Lacerda is going to try to bully him early. But Molina is really hard to hold down. He has a tendency to bounce right back up to his feet and get right back in your face and go to work and kind of melt these grapplers. He doesn't let them, rest when they get the takedowns. He gets right back up, gets back in their face, and his boxing is really good. He proved in his last fight that he has a solid chin, even though, man, at the end of that fight, he definitely got rocked real bad. He got, I believe, dropped in the first round, so had to, show he had a good chin, but at least he showed that, if he gets hit, he could take it a little bit. And I just have to go with Jeff Molina here, even though I feel like it's a fairly close fight, and, Lacerda is a little bit more of an unknown commodity, but I think Jeff Molina has proven himself a little bit more. I think that he's going to have the ability to maybe weather an early storm. If Lacerda takes him down, gets him in a bad position or two, he can, find his way out, get into a more dominant position on top, and or get in his face on the feet in the next round, or do something and get the finish. So I feel like Molina could finish him in the later rounds or win a decision down the stretch. So I'm just going to go with Molina because I think that he's going to be a little bit more composed and be able to weather that storm of Lacerda and then take over and either get the finish or get the decision win. So give me Jeff Molina here. And up next year we got a battle of two guys that really need a win. I mean, Khama Worthy, he's lost 2 fights in a row. So is Jai Herbert. Herbert actually has not gotten a win yet in the UFC. He's been in there with good competition, though, man. I mean, he had his UFC debut against Francisco Trinaldo, who we're going to talk about later. He also fought Hinata Moicano. And Khama Worthy, you know, he jumped in there against Devontae Smith, knocked him out as a huge underdog, got the victory over Luis Pena. And recently, though, he hasn't done as well, where he got knocked out very early in his last fight against Jamie Malarkey. And Amin Azaitar was also able to knock him out in that first round. So, obviously, you know, if you know about Khama Worthy, he does have a weak chin. Jai Herbert, you could argue the same for him as well. So, this battle of two guys that are dangerous on the feet, have knockout power, fast twitch guys. They, you know, have long reaches, and they have the ability to snipe guys from the outside with straight punches. And if you go on the inside with them, they have fast hands, and they can knock you out in exchanges as well. So they're dangerous, but I feel like Worthy is a little bit more diverse. But the thing is, he's a little bit more wild also, and I feel like Herbert keeps it cleaner, more technical. I don't really think there's going to be a lot of grappling in this fight where, you know, Worthy might go for takedowns, but I think if he does, Herbert is going to be able to defend them fairly easily because Worthy isn't the highest level grappler. Herbert maybe even be able to use that guillotine or front choke that he likes to get on top. And, you know, I think that Herbert could actually maybe control more of the grappling exchanges. So I feel like it's going to play out on the feet more than likely. But ultimately, I just think that even though both these guys are dangerous and both these guys could knock each other out, Herbert is going to be the one that touches Worthy first, gets the finish. He's longer. He's a little bit taller. I think he might even have the speed advantage. But the main thing is he throws straight shots down the middle. Worthy can loop a little bit. And I just think Herbert is a little bit tighter, a little bit cleaner, and is going to be able to find that kill shot at the finish. Herbert has been there with the really good guys. I mean, if he lands some of those shots that he landed on Francisco Trinaldo, I think Worthy will go out. So I'm going to go with Jai Herbert here to pick up his first UFC win. Up next here, we got a fight that was supposed to happen a couple weeks ago with Laureano Staropoli taking on Jamie Pickett. And this is probably a loser leaves town fight. You know, two fighters on losing streaks. Stropoli, 3 fights in a row he's lost. He had a pretty hot start to the UFC. I mean, he beat Thiago Alves. He was 2-0. And that one kind of was a bad thing for him because it pushed him up the rankings. He went in there with guys like Tim Means, Muslim Salikov. In his last fight, he went in there with a former 205er in Roman Dolidze. And, you know, just he wasn't ready for that level of competition. Dolidze was able to kind of grind out Stropoli, beat him over 3 rounds. It was a really boring fight. This next fight is going to be against another big 185er. So Stropoli is going to be significantly smaller here. He's going to have a 8.5-inch reach disadvantage, even though they're similar in height. Pickett is, you know, the much bigger guy, you know, body frame-wise as well. And Pickett, you know, he's been matched tough in his first 3 UFC fights as well. He went in there with Tafon Nchukwi. He fought Jordan Wright. And, you know, now he's getting this fight here with Staropoli. And, you know, he has a great chin. I mean, if you watch his fight even with Jordan Wright, he got hit with a crazy amount of elbows and, you know, was able to survive that. And the shot that finished him was actually a body shot. But, you know, he took a ton of head damage before he got finished with knees. And, you know, being 0-2, this is definitely his last chance to get the finish or get the win in the UFC here for him. And with this fight, I mean, I feel like Pickett is going to have to rely on his grappling. He has a big size advantage. He's pretty strong. He's physical in the tie-ups. He has trained with Derek Brunson. He's trained with John Salter. So he's picked up a bit of wrestling. He doesn't really set his takedowns up the greatest, but he has really long arms, so he could shoot in, get his arms connected, get the takedowns. And when fighters work to stand up, he takes the back. He has decent ground and pound. And, you know, he had some success with takedowns early against Charles Byrd. Charles Byrd did eventually get on top late in a scramble in the first round, hit an arm triangle. And Pickett looks like he can be a little bit mentally weak if he gets put in bad positions, like on his back. But he's also shown in other fights, you know, that he can take some big shots and still be there. Even though I feel like sometimes he can get a little bit timid, at least he doesn't look for the way out. You know, but in this fight, I mean, Staropoli is the better technical striker, but he overextends in a lot of his shots. He could be low volume, a little bit wild. And, you know, in this fight, he's going to have to show a little bit more composure, use his movement, try to be in and out. But the thing is with that huge reach disadvantage. I feel like it's going to be hard for him to stay on the outside. He's going to have to get on the inside and, try to avoid those tie-ups and the takedowns and just Pickett clinching up with him, put him against the cage. Just a similar fight to what Roman Dolidze did. And I just feel like Pickett can do that, man. I mean, this fight, Stropoli is, like I said, maybe going to have the striking advantage, but Pickett's going to have probably the power advantage. He's not a slouch on the feet either. When he lets go with combinations, he can be dangerous. If anyone saw that finish he had against Almatavo, it was pretty badass finish on the Contender Series. And I just feel like he's more athletic, he's bigger, he's the better grappler. And if he loses this fight, it's going to be all on his mentality, man. I mean, sometimes it seems like he could lose fights just by not pulling the trigger, just not having a lot of faith in himself. He has to let it go here. He has to do his thing. This is going to be his third try in the UFC. If he loses here, he's done. So, going with Jamie Pickett here, and I think that if he comes in here and fights to his full capabilities, he could do well and win the fight easily. So, Pickett as an underdog is the pick for me. And we got another strawweight fight here with Tabatha Ricci taking on Maria Oliveira. And Tabatha Ricci, I mean, she got tasked with a suicide mission in her UFC debut. She accepted a fight on very short notice. She was up a weight class. She took on Manon Farrow, and, she got finished in the second round. The first round was actually, fairly competitive, but Tabatha Ricci, she's short, she's compact, she's pretty small for strawweights. That was a tough ask as it is. And she's pretty athletic. She has good jiu-jitsu. And on the feet, she isn't too dangerous, but she has good movement, good footwork. I feel like she has much better footwork in comparison to Maria Oliveira. And she will try to feint her way into the body lock. At range, she doesn't offer a ton. She basically tries to, be in and out and flurry her way in with some punches. She has pretty good speed, and she'll throw some, decent hand combinations. But you saw in her last match when you stick her on the outside against a girl that can pressure her and, match her with the speed, she can kind of struggle. She doesn't really have a long reach, and also when you don't really kick or do much on the outside, obviously, if a girl can just pig you up, you could be in trouble. In this fight, she's going to have a 7-inch reach disadvantage, so that is a possibility here. But Ricci, she's a judo jiu-jitsu black belt. She is really good when she can get in top position. She's strong in the clinch. She does a good job of, when she gets on top, really going right to her submission game. She has good R bars. She'll get them out and throw ground and pound until that, position opens up where she can find the R bar. She has pretty good back takes, good cardio. And I feel like in this fight, if she can get the fight to the ground, she's going to have a big advantage and have a chance to get the finish. She is going to be taking on Maria Oliveira, who's going to be taking on, or making her second appearance of 2021. And this time it's going to be in the UFC. She has fought mostly in Brazil, but she did compete in Rise It, which is a big show. She fought the Dana White Contender Series Brazil in 2018. And she fought against Gregory Rodriguez, who's proven to be a threat for the title. And she is going to be the significantly taller and longer fighter in this fight. She isn't physically that big, though. I mean, she has competed at atomweight. Both these girls have actually competed at atomweight, so they're on the smaller side. And, she doesn't really like to stay on the outside, Oliveira, which is what she probably should do in this fight. And, as she gets older, maybe she's going to start to use her reach a little bit better. She does have a decent straight right hand. She'll mix in some front kicks, round kicks, body head. She'll, attack with some punches, but she's pretty flat-footed. And she doesn't really use her reach the best. She wants to back her opponents to the fence, get off in combination. She'll even try to close the gap into the clinch and work from there. She is pretty dangerous in exchanges. She has fast hands, and, her reach does give her the capability to kind of pull back and avoid shots from her opponents. And, this fight she definitely was trying to keep it standing, back Ricci up, get her in as many exchanges as she can, and try to, avoid going to the ground. In her last fight, she landed a really nice knee to the body that ended the fight, so maybe look for those knees. And she does have 7 knockouts in her wins, so obviously, most of her, or over half of her finishes are by strikes, so she is dangerous. She did lose against Rita Rodriguez by knockout. It was kind of weird where she kind of called the fight off herself. She waved it off, and then the ref stopped the fight. So she showed a little bit of quit there, which you never like to see in a fighter, but she's pretty dangerous in the clinch. She'll back girls up, work that Muay Thai clinch. she doesn't really have the best wrestling, but I've seen her hit some singles against the cage, and her top control is pretty good. I guess she is a white belt world champion in jiu-jitsu and no gi or in gi or something like that. I'm not sure. I saw that she had somewhere that she was a jiu-jitsu world champion, but she ended up getting a submission in one of her fights that I've seen. But it seems like when she gets put on her back, her submission game and just her ability to get up is pretty non-existent. And, against Caceres, she got submitted pretty quickly. I saw her get taken down in a couple other fights and kind of grind it out. And in this fight, I definitely feel like Ricci has a big advantage if she can get it to the ground. And but Oliveira's young, she has some, ability, and I feel like if she continues to improve, she could become pretty dangerous. I mean, the game plan for her to me is to pressure, force exchanges, try to keep Ricci on the back foot. Ricci isn't as effective with her takedowns and off the back foot, and Oliveira, in my opinion, has the superior hand speed, and her reach is superior by a large margin. And she needs to avoid her tendency to want to get into the clinch and try to control the center, go forward, and try to avoid grappling as much as possible. For Ricci, I mean, she obviously wants to use her punch blitzes to get the takedowns. She gets in top position, I feel like she could dominate the fight. And, I feel like if she hurts Oliveira, she may be willing to kind of give her a way out, as she showed before. Either get that TKO finish or, give up a submission. So I feel like Ricci, when he gets at the distance, is the most likely outcome for this fight. I'm going to go with Tabatha Ricci here. And up next here, we got a lightweight fight between Mason Jones and David Onama. And Mason Jones wasn't really sure if he was going to end up fighting on this card. He was scheduled to fight Alan Patrick after their debacle with the illegal nutshot in their first fight. And obviously, Alan Patrick pulled out, so now he's taking on David Onama. And this is going to be Mason Jones' third UFC appearance without a win. So if he doesn't win this one, he's definitely going to be in some jeopardy of being cut. So he's a lot of, pressure on him here. But his second fight obviously wasn't a loss. And he looked like he was on his way to winning that one. So he is still a hyped guy. He was a Cage Warriors 2 Division World Champion. And his one loss was very close against Mike Davis. So a lot of people still have high hopes for Mason Jones. And he's going to have a chance to prove all those people right here in this fight. David Onama, he's getting his chance at UFC glory here. He's taking a fight on short notice. This is going to be his second fight in 3 weeks, actually. He just fought on October 8th. He got a first-round knockout. And he's not only 8-0 as a pro, but he was also 10-0 as an amateur. So he's 18-0 overall. He's never tasted defeat. And his competition level hasn't been the best, but he's smoked a majority of them. I mean, he's won 7 of his pro fights inside the distance. And most of his fights have been in Kansas City. He trains at Glory MMA. And this is by far going to be the best opponent he's ever faced. But has to be confident never having tasted defeat here. And he's a striker. He's very fast. He's tall. He's rangy. He can close the gap really quickly. Throw some good power combinations. When you let him go forward and get his confidence, seems like he can start to be very dangerous. Does seem like he's good off the breaks as well. Like he lands good shots off the clinch breaks, and he's very explosive. Seems like he has some big power as well. When he gets on top, he has decent wrestling, and he can bang you out from the top position with some good grounded pounds. But I feel like grappling wise, he is a little bit green, and Jones is going to have a pretty big advantage there. And another thing about Onama is it seems like when you pressure him, he isn't the best in the pocket. He doesn't check leg kicks, and a lot of those things are things that Mason Jones does very well. So I think this is a tough matchup for him, if I'm being honest. But being undefeated, having a good chin, being confident, having a good ability of skills, on the feet and on the ground, and having that knockout power always gives Onama a chance here. But with Mason Jones, he likes to pressure forward. He isn't really the most offensively sound guy. He's very hittable, but he, is very durable at this point in his career. He walks through people's shots. He gets in the pocket. He works his leg kicks, works the body, works up to the head, tries to wear you down. He has a good grappling game as well, and when he gets on top, he really tries to beat you up with some good grounded pounds. So overall, Jones is a dangerous guy. He's a finisher, And I feel like he's just further ahead in his career than a guy like David Onama. I think he's going to be able to exploit those, bad things that I said about Onama in terms of his defense in the pocket, his leg kicks. And I also feel like if it goes to the ground, Jones is going to have an advantage there. And I do think Jones could potentially get some takedowns. So I think Mason Jones getting the finish is the most likely outcome. But he's a huge favorite. And, I don't really agree with that line. I feel like it could be a little bit closer. So ultimately, the pick is Mason Jones. But Onama, 18-0, stranger things have happened. I think Onama could get the victory here, but Mason Jones for me is the pick. And we're rounding out the prelims here with Jun Yong Park taking on Gregory Rodriguez. Both these guys have been very impressive lately. Jun Yong Park, 3-fight win streak in the UFC. And his one loss in the UFC to Alexander Hernandez was a banger of a fight, man. That was one of my favorite fights of that year. And Gregory Rodriguez, he lost last year to Jordan Williams on the Contender Series, but then he was able to rack up 2 wins in the LFA, took the LFA title, came in there against Dusko Todorovic in his UFC debut, handled business there. So both these guys are riding some momentum. Rodriguez, he is going to be the naturally bigger guy by a pretty large margin, significantly taller. He has a 3-inch reach advantage, and he's been looking good since he moved to Sanford MMA. His striking is up to notch. He's a pretty athletic guy, and he's powerful. He has good crosses, pretty good kicking game, and he's also a jiu-jitsu champion, and he has pretty solid takedowns. He's physical. The thing about him is it seems like he slows down when he grapples, so it's not a viable game plan for him in a lot of fights, and he chooses to strike, look for the knockout. And he used to be a little bit more flat-footed and plotty, and he's still not the greatest mover, but he is improving his footwork. He's improving his athleticism in that aspect. And he also, it seems like, has gotten a little bit more power. He's sitting down on his shots, and his kicks are having a little bit more zip as well. So definitely is improving overall. In this fight with Jun Yong Park, I think that this is going to be the best striker he's fought in this little run that he's had. Jun Yong Park is a serious boxer, man. I mean, the guy has a great jab, great footwork, great movement. He's always going laterally from one side to the other. He is very, very, good at never kind of staying in front of you, always being a moving target. He will, pull counter with 1-2s. His jab is super good, like I said. And just kind of keeps the range, pot shots you. If you get over aggressive, he'll throw punches and bunches on the inside. He attacks the body well. And one thing about him is he doesn't really have a lot of head movement. So if you're able to kind of eat the jab, come over the top, or eat that 1-2, come over the top and land a big shot, you can land on him sometimes, but you also have to take damage. And, those clean punches from Park do add up. So it's kind of give and take game when you do that with Jun Yong Park. Another thing about Park is leg kicks can be effective against him, but he does a good job countering the leg kicks with punches. So, you have to be a little bit good about setting him up, and I think that's something that Rodriguez is going to try to exploit here. One thing about Park is since he's joined the UFC, he's really improved his grappling. It seems like his wrestling, he's upped it by a significant margin. He's pretty good with his offensive wrestling. He really pushes the pace with it in certain fights. And I think it would be smart, even though Rodriguez is a world champion in jiu-jitsu and all that, surprise him with some takedowns, get him a little bit tired, and that could get him less willing to chase you on the feet. You could start racking it up with the jabs, with the movement, and start to get head-on points with the boxing. So this fight's going to come down, really, in my opinion, to if Rodriguez can pressure, get past that, the jabs, the crosses of Park, land some big shots over the top, land some kicks, and wear him down and eventually take him out. Or if Park can just pot shot him for the whole fight, maybe mix in a couple takedowns and get the win. So, is Jun Yong Park going to get his usual decision type of victory, or is Rodriguez going to be able to, break him down? But I'm going to go with Park. I think his side is the side that's going to get the win. I think he's a little bit more fluid with his movement, with his hand speed, and is going to be able to beat Gregory to the punch a lot on the feet. I think that might make Gregory Rodriguez a little bit timid to throw and let Park get a lot of those lulls of inactivity, which he likes, even though Park can freaking go, man. That's another thing about him is he has great cardio, and that's why I think mixing in the grappling will be effective for him, because even when he doesn't get the takedown, if he ends up on bottom, he's very good at getting back up to his feet. He is really good at just pushing the pace and not allowing a lot of breaks. So I think that if he could do that with his grappling, that could go a long way as well. But I just feel like he's going to be the superior striker as well and get the victory. So Jun Yong Park for me via decision is the pick. Man, this fight, I mean, technically, it's not the highest level fight, but it should be a banger, man. I mean, we got Ike Villanueva taking on Nick Negumereanu. And, man, I mean, Nick Negumereanu, how did he win his last fight? I mean, he kind of Homer Simpsoned his way through it, right? He got beat up, really got pieced up in the first round. I mean, Alex Caceres' jab couldn't miss. He was just eating it right on the chin, eating the 1-2s. He has a great chin, man. I mean, Caceres isn't necessarily a power puncher, and I don't think he was really sitting down on a ton of those shots, but he was pigging him, man, and Negumereanu was just eating him coming forward. And when you see his offensive striking, I mean, he has that good right hand, try to land that counter two and the, lead two. He'll throw some leg kicks and body kicks, even though they're real ugly. They're probably pretty powerful, and he does throw them fairly often. I feel like the leg kicks are going to be a big factor if he gets the victory against Villanueva in this fight. But, I mean, he's built as a grappler. He has one takedown in the UFC. He has no real top control time. He is very strong. And against Caceres, he is able to use that strength and pin him against the cage, kind of control him there for periods of the fight. But his wrestling is pretty ineffective. I mean, he doesn't really shoot takedowns. He tries to get the body lock muscle guys to the ground. And, he just doesn't really have very technical takedowns. I don't think they're very good. That's why he just hasn't been effective with his wrestling in the UFC. Sabirabek Safarov was actually able to take down Nick Negumereanu and dominate him from the bottom, or from the top position. So his anti-wrestling isn't really the best either. So I feel like his grappling is a little bit overrated, but what he does have, man, is he has a motor. He has good cardio. He can come forward and take it, and he throws big bombs. So the guy is dangerous, and he'll pin you against the cage if you're tired and win that way. And he can take your best shots and keep coming. So in that aspect, he's a difficult matchup. But overall, technically, I mean, someone with good movement that can beat him up from the outside is really going to, put a hurt on him. So Ike Villanueva, this guy is dangerous. I mean, the guy has big power. He has good boxing. He has fast hands. And I feel like early on, he's going to have a pretty significant chance to get that first round knockout. I mean, the guy has big power. He throws a combination, like I said. And he's going to be landing some big shots, I feel like, on Negumereanu. I feel like he is significantly better with his boxing. And, he's going to be landing a lot of clean shots. It's just going to be, if he gets that finish in the first round, then, you're going to be cash that ticket. You're going to be very happy. But if it goes to the second, goes into the third, you start to see Ike huffing and puffing, and Nick ate all his big shots, just like his last fight where he dropped Marcin Procchio the first round a couple times. The second round comes, and he looks a little bit tired. Nick starts landing that body kick, starts landing the leg kicks, and you see Ike start to wilt. That could happen as well. So this fight to me is could go either way. I don't really see Nick getting takedowns, though. I just feel like Ike Villanueva has fairly good takedown defense. He's never been taken down in the UFC. I've seen him in fights with Trevin Giles and guys like that way back in the day, and he showed pretty good grappling defense. And I feel like Nick is not going to be able to take him down, most likely. So it's going to be on the feet. I'm not saying he's not going to have periods of time where he controls him, Nick, like he gets a cage, hugging him maybe, and things like that. But I don't think he's going to get on top and start to take over the fight. It's just going to come down, in my opinion, to if I keep that pace. And if he can, I think he's going to win the fight. Or if he can get that first round knockout. Or if Negumereanu can, get him tired, eating all his shots, start to land those kicks, and land some big punches, and maybe hurt him and get him out of there. So, I mean, this fight is another one that's a coin flip, in my opinion. And that's why I'm going to go with the guy that has a pretty big underdog price. I mean, at plus 180, plus 170. Going to go with Ike Villanueva to pick up the victory here in a very low-level slot fest type of fight here. And the next fight here is at 170 pounds. You got Dwight Grant taking on Francisco Trinaldo. both these fighters doing it for the old guys here. You got Dwight Grant, he's 37, and Trinaldo coming in at 43, fresh 43. So, man, I mean, both these guys are pretty big veterans in the UFC by now. Obviously, Trinaldo has way more fights than Dwight Grant, but both these guys have had more than 5 fights in the UFC. And Trinaldo, this guy's done it all, man. I mean, he's beaten some really good guys at 155, came up to 170 now, and had a couple fights, won one, lost one. And Dwight Grant, kind of a middling guy where he's got some knockout wins. He has got a couple decision wins by split decision and really close decisions, and lost a couple close decisions. So, kind of middling type of guy, but he's dangerous. I really honestly don't think Dwight Grant technically is the greatest fighter, but the thing about him is he has really long arms. I mean, he's going to have a 6.5-inch reach advantage in this fight. He's southpaw, which is kind of a different look for a lot of people, and he is always moving backwards. He's never the aggressor in his fights, never really goes first, so he forces you to come to him, and then he throws these real awkward, wide shots, big looping hooks, and he has power, so it kind of makes you a little bit weird to close that gap because you don't know what he's going to throw, you don't know what he's going to throw, and when he lands, it has bad intentions on it, and, you could get knocked out. So it's a little bit of a weird type of style. He doesn't throw a lot of kicks, doesn't really mix in the grappling. I feel like his grappling is kind of underwhelming in my opinion. I don't think it's really been exploited too bad, but I feel like Trinaldo could come in here and potentially show that hole in his game. But Dwight Grant, I mean, that's kind of what I think about him. I mean, he's fast with his hands. He has some power and kind of a real awkward type of style that, he can catch you and he can lull you into these low-paced fights by always having you thinking in the back of your head that he has the counter ability and the power to knock you out. So he is a little bit of a tricky fighter. Francisco Trinaldo, he's seen it all, he's fighting a southpaw, but he's a fellow southpaw in his own right. And Trinaldo, he tends to struggle against guys that are real kick heavy, that have good movement. And Grant, he has that good movement, so that could potentially give Trinaldo some issues along with the reach. But Trinaldo's really good at kind of feinting his way into range, and he has that good straight left hand, he has a good body kick, good head kick. And his grappling is really pretty solid. He's strong in the clinch. He has good clinch takedowns. When he gets on top, he's always looking for that guillotine. He'll try to take the back. His top control could be a little bit better, but I feel like if he does take down Dwight Grant, he could control him from the top position how he did Jai Herbert a little bit. And it's going to be a good fight. I mean, I feel like Trinaldo, early on, he's going to have to be real weary, obviously, but I think that he's going to be able to eventually figure out what Dwight Grant's doing, get the beat on him, and start to feint his way into the body lock, get Dwight Grant against the cage, slow him down a little bit, land some punches over the top. I feel like Trinaldo's the more durable guy. I mean, he's had, over 30 fights. He's never been finished. Dwight Grant has been knocked out before, and he's been hurt in other fights as well. So I do think Trinaldo's durable and more durable than Dwight Grant. And if he connects clean, he can hurt Dwight Grant, knock him out. Even though Grant could do the same, I think that Trinaldo, has a higher percentage chance of doing that. And I also feel like Trinaldo is the better grappler. So I feel like Trinaldo should get the win in this one. I know he's 43 years old. The wheels are going to fall off at some point. But I think that the awkwardness of Dwight Grant isn't going to be enough for him to get the victory here. The counter shots. I think Trinaldo knows how to win these close decisions as well. He's smart at how he handles the last minute, the last 30 seconds of the rounds, and knows how to, put it on for the judge with a big flurry or a big, flashy body kick or something like that. So I think Trinaldo can mix in the grappling early and, land some big shots late, pressure later. He looks fresh in the third round against Salikov. It was a good third round for him in that fight. And if he can, eventually try and find the range and the rhythm of that fight, start to land some shots at a guy like Muslim Salikov, I feel like he could do it against a guy like Dwight Grant. So give me Trinaldo. I think he's going to keep on keeping on, get another victory here at the age of 43 years old. And in the next fight on the main card, we got a striker's delight here with Alex Caceres, Bruce Leroy taking on Seung Woo Choi. And Caceres, man, I mean, he's going to end up catching up with Jim Miller and Andrei Arlovsky, all these guys near the top of the UFC most fights list, as long as he can still keep winning. I mean, right now he's on a 4-fight win streak, 33 years old. He already has over 20 fights in the UFC, so he's going to be up there with those guys eventually, most likely. And this fight, though, he is a tough ask. He's a pretty big underdog, taking on a good kickboxer, good Muay Thai guy, Seung Woo Choi. And it's going to be an interesting fight because they're both strikers. I don't see a lot of grappling, but they have contrasting styles. Where Seung Woo Choi, he's a pressure fighter. He's a little bit more flat-footed, and he doesn't really throw a lot of, setups. He's really throwing a lot of hard combos, a lot of hard punches, trying to knock you out, trying to hurt you. He does throw some nice 1-2s. He's real fluid, real tactical, not a lot of wasted movement. He has fast hands. He has solid kicks. But he's throwing everything with power, trying to knock you out. And he's coming forward. He wants to sit in the pocket. He does have good footwork and movement in his own right, and really pressures, really effectively cuts the cage off. But Caceres is the one that wants to use that movement, stay on the outside, throw kicks, throw touching shots, and try to rack up the points and maybe pull you into a really creative shot that could knock you out, but really just try to point you to a decision victory, which is what he does in the majority of his fights. His grappling has improved over the years, Caceres, but don't really see him using any offensive grappling really in any of his fights, and he has been submitted several times. I think Seung Woo Choi is actually the superior guy at the clinch. If he can work his way to that clinch, he could maybe beat up Caceres a little bit. He has really good shots off the breaks of the clinches as well, Seung Woo Choi, so that's something that Caceres has to be weary of, and Choi has to try to exploit. And I just feel like Choi is the cleaner striker. He's going to be pressured forward, which is good optics for the judges as well. And it's going to be a tough ask for Caceres to outstrike Choi on the back foot. I don't see him really mixing in any grappling, which is what Choi struggled with in his UFC losses. So I'm going to go with Seung Woo Choi. One thing about Alex Caceres is the guy's hard to knock out, man. I think he's only been finished by strikes one time, which was a very quick knockout loss to Francisco Rivera back in the day. All his other fights, I mean, the guys that he's fought, real high-level guys, never been finished by strikes. He's only been submitted or he's gotten a decision. So this is a fight that maybe you could target Choi by decision or the over. And I think Seung Woo Choi is just going to be a little bit cleaner of a striker, be the guy coming forward, and be able to get the win. And we got the last women's fight on the card here with Jessie Jess taking on Joselyne Edwards, Jessica Rose Clark. An interesting matchup here. I mean, both these girls kind of had some hype at one point, and maybe they still do have a little bit of hype. I mean, Joselyne Edwards came into the UFC short notice and, had a really good performance against Yeon Woo, where she looked pretty dominant, looked good on the feet, looked good on the ground, but couldn't bring that, energy into her next fight where she dropped a decision to Karol Rosa. And she had some good moments. She cut Karol Rosa up pretty good, but overall she kind of got dominated. She got taken down really easily, controlled on top. Rosa actually landed some big punches as well on the feet. And Jessica Rose Clark, she got back to her winning ways. Her last fight, she dominated her par, finished her in the third round with a pretty brutal flurry of knees. And that was her first win in a while. She had lost 2 fights in a row prior to that, but she had racked up a pretty big following by beating Beck Rawlings, beating Paige Van Zandt, 2 girls that are pretty hyped at one point as well in the UFC. But then she lost 2 fights in a row before getting that victory, so she still kind of needs to get a couple more wins to, get back to the position she was before. She did move up a weight class as well to fight at 135, so this is kind of her second weight class, second foray in the UFC kind of run to see where she could take it. And Joselyne Edwards is a good opponent. I mean, she's young, she trains in King's MMA, and she's going to give Jessica Rose Clark a good striking fight, probably what Jessica Rose Clark wants. The thing about Joselyne Edwards, though, is I feel like she's still a little bit green. She's very athletic. She has fast hand speed. She'll throw some good combinations. She's aggressive. But she does kind of overextend her shots. She allows girls to get in on her legs and get takedowns or get body lock takedowns pretty easily, just being too over aggressive, overextending, and she sometimes she's too wild. She doesn't have the composure to keep it on the outside, use her superior hand speed, her striking, her footwork, and just beat a girl up. But she's dangerous because she has power. She has long reach. She lets it go. And, if you exchange with her, she's willing to exchange. And she's dangerous in those exchanges. So Jessica Rose Clark has to be smart in how she, takes this fight. But where I feel like she has the advantages is Joselyne Edwards, she kind of leaves her head right there on center line, especially after she throws her punches. So if you kind of shell up or take the shots and return with a big shot, you can land clean on her. Another thing about her fight with Carol Rosa is she really got her leg beat up with leg kicks. And Jessica Rose Clark throws some nasty kicks. So if she lands a few leg kicks, she can really give Edwards some issues if Edwards doesn't check those kicks. And I think Rose Clark could dominate the clinch, man. I think that could be an area where she really does well, similar to her last fight with Sarah Alpar. And Edwards is going to give her some opportunities to clinch up with her. She does, like you said, have a tendency to overextend and end up, giving her opponents that ability. So I think Rose Clark could even hit some takedowns, even though she doesn't really like to grapple. I think she's a superior grappler in this fight. And I think in the clinch, she could really beat her up with knees, with the elbows, and controlling against the cage, kind of zap some of that speed and energy from Edwards and slow down the pace of the fight. So I think Rose Clark, she has a tendency to be like the good Jessie Jess certain fights, the bad Jessie Jess in other fights. So hopefully she comes in as the good Jessie Jess, and I think she can go in there and use her clinch game, fight to a good game plan, use her experience, her veteran savvy, and get the victory. And in the co-main event here, we got the UFC kind of trying to give some shine to Grant Dawson here as he takes on the veteran Rick Glenn. And, man, Rick Glenn could play spoiler again, though. His last fight, he's a big underdog. He's coming off a big, long layoff, moving up a weight class. So there's a lot of kind of question marks about him. And, man, he erased those really quick. He got a less than 1 minute knockout against Joaquim Silva, who's a pretty formidable fighter in his own right. So that was a really good victory for Rick Glenn. And in this fight, that's what he's going to have to do again. He's going to have to land some big shots as Grant Dawson comes in, connect on his chin, knock him out. He's going to have to make Grant Dawson work really hard for the takedowns. When Dawson does get him down, work back up to his feet and try to beat him up standing. And Glenn, has pretty good grappling skills when he can get on top, but his wrestling is nowhere near the level of Dawson's. I don't see him shooting takedowns. I don't see him being effective if he does. And Dawson's probably going to be able to take him down, more than likely. So Glenn is going to have to, be ready for that and know that he's going to have to probably weather a storm or be able to get back up to his feet and go to work. But Grant Dawson seems like he's a motherfucker, man. The guy's been undefeated in the UFC. He got that crazy knockout with 1 second left against Leo Santos. And fight that was fairly close, but I believe Dawson was winning that fight as well. So, man, this is a new weight class, 155, but if he can beat Rick Glenn in a co-main event, I think he's going to get a top 10, top 15 opponent next. So it's a big fight for him. And, I think he's going to come in here. He's going to have a lot to prove, and he's going to try to get the finish. And Dawson, he fights one way. He kind of is improving his striking a little bit. He works those knees up the middle, that James Krause knee. He kind of fights with that Philly shell and tries to kind of land some counter punches. His striking is still, in my opinion, a little bit sloppy, but he's aggressive. He throws big body kicks, and he's really just trying to work the takedown. And when he gets on top, he smothers you, beats you up in the top position, and makes you quit, gets the submission, or beats you up with ground and pound and TKOs you or knocks you out. So he's been able to get a lot of finishes on the ground and really break a lot of guys. His pace is really good. He has great cardio. So, man, I just think that Grant Dawson is going to do what he does here. Rick Glenn obviously has that chance to get the knockout, but it's not like he's a big power puncher. His last fight was kind of an anomaly when you look at his career. So I think Grant Dawson's going to be able to eventually hit the takedown, start beating up Rick Glenn from the top position. We've seen Rick Glenn on his back against guys like Evan Dunham and looked a little bit weak on bottom. So I think that Grant Dawson could beat him up there and dominate. But Rick Glenn has done well against certain wrestlers. He beat Dennis Bermudez. So he has a chance to get the win here, but I'm going with Grant Dawson. And in the main event here, we got Paulo Costa taking on Marvin Vettori. Pretty good main event, man. Both these guys' last fight was the title fight against Israel Adesanya. And it's the best main event we've had in weeks, so I'm excited for it. But like I said at the top, it's nothing like a Paulo Costa week if there's not a controversy. Last week, or last fight week for him, I guess we didn't know this before the fight week, but after he talked about, drinking a whole bottle of wine before the fight, getting drunk, and this time he comes in, I believe he said he was 211 pounds, so now they're doing it 195-pound catch weight for this fight. And I don't really know what to think about that. I mean, think about Borchia. He hasn't fought in a long time. He's always had issues making the weight. Everyone says he's one of the biggest middleweights I've ever seen and everything like that. So it could just be he miscalculated the weight cut. It's getting harder. He's getting moved to 205, or is he still injured? Does he have another injury? Because he had a lot of injuries. That was why he had the layoff. So makes you wonder a little bit. But Paulo Borchia, he's always going to bring it. He's the eraser. And, Marvin Vettori, though, he's kind of a similar guy. I mean, both these guys, I feel like, fight IQ-wise, maybe IQ-wise overall, aren't the sharpest in the world. But, they're both going there, and they fight for your money, and they do their thing. So it's going to be a fun fight to watch. And Marvin Vettori, he seems like he's down with this 195. He's down to fight at 205. He's a fighter. He's going to do whatever. And, so I think they officially said this fight's going to be at 195 pounds. So take with that what you will. Who you think that affects? Who you think that's going to be an advantage for? Who you think it's not going to be an advantage for? What do you think? Do you guys think Borchia getting this 195 is going to be a plus for him? Do you think it's going to be a negative? What do you guys believe about that? So I'll be kind of curious. But when I'm thinking about this fight, I mean, he's big, man. He's imposing, and he likes to walk you down, get your back against the cage and go from there. He throws really good combinations, body shots, head shots, really good straight right hand. He has good hand speed, good front kicks to the body. He comes over the top with that big right hand. He has some power. And he does a great job of, choosing which side you're going to try to escape off the cage with and attacking with a big head kick, big body kick. And he's pretty good at faking and feigning, cutting the cage off. Keeps the volume pretty high. His defense isn't good, though. I mean, he gets too over-aggressive. Doesn't really move his head. He can overextend on some of his shots. And Uriah Hall was able to really ping him with a lot of jabs. We saw Israel Adesanya, utilize that same game plan. And he also brought in the leg kicks, which really stymied Costa. And Costa, he has a good chin. But his last fight, his chin did get busted, and you have to kind of worry and wonder about where his mind is as well. But he does have good power. I think his power is a little bit overrated, but he breaks guys down with body shots, head shots, and he can make them quit. His grappling, in my opinion, it hasn't really been tested too much. His wrestling defense looked good against Yoel Romero, but Romero wasn't really forcing him to grapple really heavy, which Marvin will. And I think that if he gets taken down, put on his back, his cardio is going to go really quick. So if I was Marvin, I would try to push this wrestling and grappling a lot throughout the fight. And Vettori, he has that pressure style, punches and bunches on the inside, pretty technical boxing. I feel like he has the superior boxing skill and superior defense. Durability-wise, Marvin has never been finished. That's another thing that I like for him in this fight. I think his gas take is better. And just when I look at this fight, I think Marvin is the more complete fighter overall. I feel like he can pressure, use his jab, and really try to hit the takedowns or push Costa against the cage, get him tired, then overwhelm him with volume late on the feet and get him out of there, get him down and find that submission or the finish late. I think that 4th, 5th round finish is live for Vettori here. Costa, I think he's gonna need some major improvements to get the win in this fight. I think he's gonna have to show some improved grappling defense. I think he's gonna have to show some better striking defense. He's gonna have to show some better cardio, probably more fight IQ, and yeah, so I think Vettori should get the victory here, and I think he could get the finish, like I said, in the later rounds. So give me Marvin Vettori. This fight's tough to call, though, because both these guys just kind of got embarrassed a little bit by the champ. You don't know where their heads are at all. So both these guys could lay a dud, and, you wouldn't really be shocked, right? So I'm going to go with Marvin Vettori, but I do think it's a close fight here. So there you have it, guys. That's the breakdown prediction video for Costa versus Vettori. If you made it through that whole video, I really appreciate you. I am feeling a little bit under the weather. I'm sure you can hear it in my voice. So yeah, man, probably was a hard one to sit through, but hopefully you got some good information. Hopefully we do well with the picks. And as far as the most confident pick of the week and the parlay of the week, for my most confident pick, I guess I'm going to go with Mason Jones, even though he's a huge favorite. For the parlay of the week, it's going to be Seung Woo Choi and Tabatha Ricci. I think they're both going to get it done. And there you have it, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.